I didn't expect to be back here. But then again, I didn't expect my grandfather to be dying either. The beach villa, the one place I had always felt at home, felt foreign now. It stood there, an opulent reminder of everything my parents had built. Or maybe more accurately, everything they wanted me to believe they'd built. I took a deep breath as I stepped out of the car, the sound of waves crashing softly in the distance. It was supposed to be comforting, but instead, it felt like a slow suffocation. When I walked through the front door, the first thing that hit me was the noise. Laughter. Music. The clink of glasses. It was like stepping into an alternate reality. People in suits and dresses, clapping and chatting as if my grandfather's life wasn't hanging by a thread. A feeling of heat rose in my chest, anger, disbelief, and something deeper. The chaos of it all made me feel like a ghost in my own home. I paused for a moment, just inside the foyer, as a swirl of clinking glasses and murmurs filled the air. My mother, in her finest dress, was standing by the bar, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. My father was nowhere to be seen, but the shadows told me he was probably in a back room somewhere, making deals as usual. This wasn't just a party. It was a distraction, a cover for something more. "Mom?" I called, trying to stay calm. She turned around, her face lighting up with that practiced smile. "Oh, darling, you're here. Just in time for the toast." I looked past her, my eyes scanning the room. It was a celebration of life, they said, but what I saw was a celebration of wealth, of survival, of something much darker. And at the center of it all, I knew Grandpa was lying in a hospital bed, alone, slipping away. "Mom, Grandpa is dying," I said, my voice sharp with frustration. She waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic, Maya. This is our chance to celebrate. A little joy, don't you think? Come on, have a drink. Life goes on." My blood boiled. How could she stand there, so composed, when her father, my grandfather, was wasting away in a sterile room, unattended, uncared for? But it wasn't just the cruelty. No. It was the fact that they thought they could pull it off. The charade. The lie. As if everything was fine, when the truth was unraveling beneath them. I stepped away, moving past the guests who didn't even spare me a glance, my pulse pounding in my ears. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Every step I took down the hallway felt like I was walking deeper into a pit. When I reached my parents' study, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, only to freeze when I heard voices inside. "We'll sell it," my father's voice echoed, low and calculating. "Get rid of it as fast as possible. The buyer's already on the line." My heart skipped a beat. I knew exactly what he was talking about. The villa. The very house I thought I was inheriting. I leaned closer to the door, listening intently. "We can't let Maya know," my mother's voice added. "If she finds out, it'll ruin everything. We need her on our side, for now." I took a step back, the cold sweat on my skin turning to ice. Sell it? They were selling my inheritance, my family's legacy. Without so much as a word to me. And worse, they had already found a buyer. I backed away from the door, my mind spinning. Every part of me screamed to confront them, to demand answers, but I knew it would do no good. They had their plans, and I was nothing more than a pawn in their game. I had been right all along. Everything I'd ever believed about this family, about our wealth, our power, was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. And now, with Grandpa gone, the real game was beginning. But there was one thing I knew for certain: I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I turned and headed for the front door, determined. I couldn't just stand by and let them dismantle everything. The villa was just the beginning. There was something much bigger at play here, and I was going to find out what it was, even if it meant tearing my family apart. I had to. For Grandpa. And for me. As I stepped into the cool night air, I realized I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for my own soul. The morning after the party, the villa was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that makes the walls feel like they're holding secrets. I couldn't shake the image of my mother's cold smile, the way she'd burst me off as if I were a nuisance rather than her daughter. "This is life, Maya," she'd said. "Not everything is about the past." But there was something about last night that felt like a dark omen. It wasn't just the party, it was what my parents weren't saying. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed answers. The first thing I did was call Liam, my grandfather's lawyer, the one person who might know something about the will, about the villa, and about everything I'd just heard my parents whispering about. I'd been too furious last night to think straight, but now, the pieces were coming together. My gut told me that selling the villa wasn't a random financial decision. There was more to it. And I was going to find out what. I left the villa and drove straight to Liam's office. The old building smelled like leather and dust, with the kind of quiet that only comes from years of secrets being stored in musty file cabinets. As I walked in, the receptionist barely glanced up, her fingers still typing rapidly on the keyboard. "Liam's expecting you," she said, gesturing toward the back. The door to his office was ajar, and as I entered, Liam looked up, his glasses perched on the end of his nose, scanning a pile of papers on his desk. The moment he saw me, his eyes hardened, as though he'd already sensed why I was there. "You shouldn't have come here, Maya," he said, his voice low. I ignored the warning tone. "I need you to tell me everything about the villa. Everything about the will." He hesitated for a moment, then put his pen down, his face a mask of conflict. "Maya, your grandfather left specific instructions in his will. He wanted to protect you. But he also left a lot of things unsaid." "Unsure of what?" I pressed. "What the hell is going on?" Liam looked away, visibly uncomfortable. "You don't understand, Maya. Your family has been involved in things that go far beyond inheritance. Your grandfather's assets were under pressure long before his health started failing. But it's not just money. There's a whole network tied to your family's wealth, people who are dangerous." I felt a wave of nausea. "What do you mean dangerous? What's going on with the villa?" Liam looked up at me, his expression grim. "The villa is collateral in a much larger game. Your parents have been involved in some pretty serious deals with people who aren't exactly above the law. They've been using family assets, including the villa, to cover their tracks." I leaned in, my heart pounding. "Cover their tracks for what?" Liam paused again, his eyes narrowing. "I'm sorry, Maya. I can't say more. If I do, I could be in danger, too. But you need to understand this, the villa wasn't sold just for money. It was the first step in a much bigger plan." I stood up abruptly, feeling like the ground was slipping away beneath me. My mind was racing, my parents, the villa, my grandfather's legacy. All of it was connected. And the danger was real. Before I could speak, Liam grabbed my wrist. "Maya, don't go looking for things you're not ready to find. It's too late to stop it now." I jerked my arm away. "No. I'm not just going to sit here while they destroy everything." Liam's face hardened. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." He stepped back, his voice shaking. "This goes beyond your family. Trust me, you need to walk away while you can." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The anger and fear I'd been holding back finally broke free, but I knew one thing, I wasn't walking away. Not without the truth. I turned and walked out of the office, the heavy door closing behind me with a resounding thud. As I stepped back into the bright sunlight, my phone buzzed. The message from my mother sent a shiver down my spine. "I know what you're doing and I won't let you destroy us." I stood frozen in the parking lot, the words ringing in my ears. She knew. And the stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. I stood in the middle of the deserted street, staring at the message from my mother, feeling the weight of it pressing down on me. "I know what you're doing and I won't let you destroy us." Her words echoed in my mind like a ticking clock, each second taking me closer to a truth I was afraid to face. The sound of footsteps behind me broke my trance. I whipped around, heart pounding. It was Victor Hale, the man I met earlier. The air around us thickened as he took slow steps toward me, his expression unreadable. "You've got to stop digging, Maya," he said, his voice cold and calculated. "You don't know what you're getting into." "Is that a threat?" I shot back, not backing down. He chuckled darkly. "You're not the one in danger here, Maya. It's your family." He stepped closer, his shoes clicking sharply against the pavement. "And now, it's you. It was a mistake to come here." I swallowed hard, refusing to show any sign of weakness. "I'm not afraid of you. And I'm definitely not afraid of them." I gestured towards the imposing mansion behind me, the villa my family had abandoned in their pursuit of whatever dark agenda they were hiding. Victor's eyes flickered, then softened, like he was studying me. "You should be. You think you're dealing with a family of business tycoons, but they're players in a game much bigger than you could imagine. You really think your parents would sell the villa just for money? It's not about money. Not anymore." His words stung, but I couldn't let him see how much they rattled me. "What do you want, Victor? Why are you following me?" His gaze hardened, and he leaned in, his voice lowering. "I'm offering you a way out. You think your family's wealth is the only thing at stake here? Your life is, too." I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of anger. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Your parents have been running from something much bigger than debt collectors," he said, his voice like a whisper in the wind. "You're digging too deep, Maya. The closer you get to the truth, the closer you come to something that will destroy everything." I took a step back, my heart racing. "What are you talking about?" But before he could respond, a loud engine roared in the distance. I turned instinctively, just in time to see a black SUV screech to a stop in front of us. The door swung open, and two men in suits stepped out. One of them was holding a gun. Victor didn't flinch. He stood there, unfazed, watching as the men approached. "You're too deep, Maya," he said again, this time with finality. "You can't go back now." The men didn't speak as they came closer. My mind was spinning. Was this it? Was I really about to be dragged into something far worse than I could imagine? "Who are they?" I demanded. Victor didn't answer. Instead, he just turned and gave the men a subtle nod. The man with the gun stepped forward, his eyes never leaving mine. "Get in the car," the man said, his tone hard, like this was a simple order. But it wasn't. I could see it in his eyes, this wasn't a negotiation. I was about to be forced into something I wasn't prepared for. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I couldn't let them intimidate me any longer. I refused to be a pawn in their game. "No," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my insides. "Tell me what's going on. Tell me why my family is being targeted by these people." The man with the gun raised an eyebrow, then glanced at Victor, who nodded again. He stepped forward, gripping my arm roughly. I said, "Get in the car." My heart pounded. The world felt like it was closing in on me, the walls of the street narrowing with every passing second. I had no choice but to go with them. But I wasn't giving up yet. Not now. Not after everything I'd already uncovered. I took a deep breath, my eyes locking with Victor's one last time. He didn't look surprised. In fact, I think he knew exactly what was about to happen. I was already in too deep. There was no way out. As the man dragged me toward the SUV, I could feel my pulse quicken, the adrenaline flooding my veins. I had to stay sharp. This was it, the moment when everything would change. I had no idea where they were taking me, but I knew one thing for sure, I was about to get answers, whether I liked it or not. And I wasn't going down without a fight. The door slammed shut, and the SUV sped off into the night, the darkness swallowing us whole. The SUV was a silent, suffocating cage. As the engine hummed beneath me, I felt like I was suffocating, the air thick with tension. The men didn't say a word. Not one. It was like they were waiting for me to break, to show weakness. But I wouldn't. Not now. Not when I was this close. Every second that passed, every inch we drove, the weight on my chest grew heavier. The city faded behind us, replaced by dark stretches of road and the dim glow of the headlights cutting through the night. I had no idea where we were going, but it didn't matter. I had no choice but to follow. Victor, sitting across from me in the back seat, remained eerily calm. But I could see it in his eyes, this was bigger than any of us. His usual mask of indifference had cracked, revealing something much darker. Something dangerous. This isn't just about the villa, is it? I asked, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. Victor didn't answer right away. Instead, he just stared out the window, the lights of the city flickering in his reflection. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice low and measured. You're too close, Maya. There's no going back now. I clenched my jaw, ignoring the fear that tried to creep in. I'm already too deep. So tell me, what exactly is going on? Why are they? Before I could finish, the car screeched to a halt. I wasn't ready. Not for this. The door swung open violently, and the men stepped out, each one moving with military precision. My heart raced. The driver looked at me with cold eyes. Out. I hesitated only a moment before I stepped into the night air, my mind still spinning. Where was I? What were they planning to do with me? Victor stepped out behind me, and I noticed for the first time that his composure had slipped. His jaw was tight, and his eyes darted nervously around the dark, secluded area. Follow me, he muttered, his voice barely audible. I followed him, the cold bite of the air seeping through my clothes. We walked into a building, one that looked like it had been abandoned for years, cracked windows, rusted metal doors, and an unsettling silence that settled deep in my bones. The door slammed shut behind us, and the men vanished into the shadows. The place smelled like decay, like secrets that had been buried for far too long. You've been asking the wrong questions, Maya, Victor said, his voice cold now. It's not just your parents who've been hiding things from you. It's everyone. What do you mean? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. Victor stepped closer, his face inches from mine. They've been laundering money, Maya. Not just with the villa. With everything. Your family's empire isn't built on hard work. It's built on manipulation, lies, and dirty deals. You want to know what's going on? This is it. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Everything I'd ever known, everything I'd ever believed, was a lie. I stumbled back, trying to process it. But how do you know all of this? Why are you telling me? Victor's lips curled into a cold smile. Because you're too important to ignore. Your family's money, their power, it's not just theirs anymore. It's someone else's. And they're coming for you. I felt my stomach twist. Who? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin, weathered envelope. This is for you, he said, handing it to me. But be careful. The more you know, the closer you get to the truth, the more dangerous it becomes. I took the envelope, my hands shaking. I didn't want to open it, not yet. I was afraid of what I might find inside, but I knew I had no choice. I had to see it. I had to know the truth. The envelope was sealed with a red wax stamp. It looked official, like something from a government office. My heart raced as I carefully pried it open, pulling out a single sheet of paper. The words on the page were brief but chilling. Your family's debts have been paid. But the price is higher than you think. Your inheritance is no longer yours. I stared at the paper, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath me. My inheritance, everything I thought was mine, was gone. And I wasn't just losing it to a sale. This was something deeper, something far more sinister. Victor's voice broke through my thoughts. You see? Your parents thought they were in control. They're not. They're just pawns in a game, and they've dragged you in without even knowing it. My mind spun. I needed answers. I needed to know who was behind this. Who was controlling everything from the shadows? Before I could speak, I heard a faint noise, a metallic click, from the other side of the room. It was followed by the distinct sound of footsteps. Someone was coming. Victor tensed. Time's up. What do you mean? But it was too late. The door behind us slammed open, and two figures stepped into the room. They were familiar, too familiar. It was my parents. They weren't supposed to be here. But there they were, standing in the doorway, watching me with expressions of cold indifference. My father's eyes flickered toward the envelope in my hand. You weren't supposed to find out, Maya, he said, his voice steady. But now you have. And you've gone too far. I froze, every muscle in my body locking up. The truth was out. And there was no turning back now. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the soft hum of the overhead lights. My parents stood across from me, their faces unreadable. The envelope I held felt like lead in my hands, its contents crushing any hope of finding an easy way out. My father's gaze was steady, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something I couldn't place. Fear? Guilt? You shouldn't have come here, Maya, my mother said, her voice quiet but firm. This was never meant for you. I stared at her, my stomach twisting. How could they stand there, so calm, while everything I thought I knew crumbled around me? What do you mean? What do you mean by all of this? My voice shook despite my best efforts. You should have stayed out of it, my father said, his tone colder than usual. Your inheritance was never yours to begin with. We gave it to the people who could manage it. You were never meant to know this much. The words hit me like a slap. My inheritance? Gone? Just like that? I tried to steady my breath. But why? Why hide it from me? Why? Because you're a liability, my father cut me off, his voice sharp. You always have been. The sting of his words landed heavier than anything he'd ever said to me before. A part of me wanted to scream, to confront him, but I knew better. There was something bigger going on here, something more than just family dynamics. My mother crossed her arms, eyes narrowing. You're not cut out for this, Maya. You never were. We tried to protect you, but you couldn't leave well enough alone. You should have stayed in your little bubble. I felt the rage building inside me, the tight grip of betrayal twisting in my chest. You used me as a pawn in your games. All these years I trailed off, shaking my head. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, my father said, stepping closer. The deal is done. Deal? I repeated, my mind racing. What deal? What the hell are you talking about? Before he could answer, the door to the room creaked open. A man in a dark suit stepped in, his face stern, almost robotic. He looked at my parents before turning his attention to me. His presence immediately filled the room with an ominous weight. Is everything in order? The man asked, his voice low, like it was laced with something darker, something I didn't understand. My parents exchanged a quick glance. Yes, my father replied, never taking his eyes off me. She's starting to ask too many questions. The man nodded. That's what we feared. It's time we take control. Take control. My blood ran cold. My instincts screamed that I was in deeper than I had ever realized. The man walked toward me, his shoes clicking on the floor with each step, slow and deliberate. We have everything we need. You've seen too much. We can't afford for you to disrupt things anymore. I froze. His eyes were cold, calculating. You'll come with me, he said, not asking but stating it as a matter of fact. Come with you? I repeated, my pulse quickening. Where? What do you mean? My mother stepped forward, her expression hardening. Don't make this worse, Maya. The deal is already set. It's too late to turn back now. Too late? I whispered. You think it's too late for me to walk away from this? The man's voice dropped, becoming almost a whisper. Yes, because you're already too involved. You've seen things, heard things now, you're not leaving here until we say so. I felt the blood drain from my face. My entire body screamed for me to run, to escape, but my feet were frozen to the floor. My father, the man I had trusted my entire life, stood there, silent, complicit. I needed answers. I needed to know why my family, why they had betrayed me so completely. Who's behind this? Who's really pulling the strings? The man chuckled softly, as if the question was a joke. You'll find out soon enough. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The vibration broke the tension for a split second. I reached for it, hands trembling, and saw the name on the screen. Victor, I muttered under my breath. Without thinking, I answered the call, desperate for anything that could pull me out of this nightmare. Maya, Victor's voice crackled through the line, breathless. They know you're asking questions. Get out. Now. Don't trust them. I felt my heart stop. What? What do you mean? Who knows? The people your parents are working for. I don't know all the details, but they're not who they say they are. You need to leave now. Get to the safe house. I'll explain everything later. Before I could respond, the line went dead. A million thoughts raced through my mind. Safe house? What the hell was going on? The man in the suit was now inches away from me, his hand reaching out. It's time, he said, his grip tightening around my wrist. Let me go. I shouted, but my voice felt weak, powerless. I was trapped. Everything felt like it was closing in. I had no answers, no escape. But the truth, Victor's warning, echoed in my head. They were coming for me. Not just my family. Not just the money. They were coming for me. I tried to break free, but the man's grip was iron. I struggled, but it was no use. The door behind me slammed shut with a force that rattled my bones. And then, just as I thought I couldn't take any more, just as I thought I might lose my mind entirely, the phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Victor. It was a message. You've been marked. There's nowhere to hide. And the blood drained from my face as I read the final line. Your family's secrets are our weapon now. And we're coming for you. The sharp click of the lock echoed through the empty hallway. I stood still for a moment, letting the weight of everything press against me. The house felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. My heart was pounding in my chest, but there was no running now. It was time to face everything head on. Victor's voice haunted me, that last warning still fresh in my mind. They're coming for you, Maya. You don't know how deep this goes. I hadn't wanted to believe him, but as I stood there, my hands trembling slightly, I knew that the truth was far darker than I had ever imagined. My family wasn't just involved, they were at the center of everything. And I had become an obstacle in their carefully constructed empire. A door opened behind me. I didn't turn to look. There was no need. I could feel the presence of the man in the suit before he even spoke. You don't have to make this harder than it already is, he said, his voice as cold and detached as it had been the first time we met. Your parents tried to protect you, but you kept pushing. I swallowed, my throat dry. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of it. None of us do, he replied. But we deal with it, don't we? I could hear the smile in his voice. The same smile I had once trusted when my father's business partner was just a distant figure, someone I thought I could ignore. Now, that man was a threat I couldn't escape. The realization hit me then, my parents were the ones who set all of this in motion. They were the architects of my misery. But it wasn't just about money or power, it was about control. My family had spent years manipulating, twisting, and pulling strings to build their empire. I was merely a pawn in their game. I'm not like them, I muttered to myself. No, the man said, almost gently. You're different. You're the problem. There it was, the truth. They saw me as a problem. An inconvenient variable in their perfectly calculated life. Suddenly, I heard the door slam open behind me. My breath caught in my throat. The moment I had feared was here. Victor burst into the room, eyes wild, his face streaked with sweat. Maya, they're here, he gasped, pulling me toward him. You need to leave, now. The man in the suit didn't move, but I could feel the tension crackling in the air. What's going on, Victor? I asked, my mind racing. There's no time. Trust me. He grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the back door, his grip tight and desperate. As we ran through the dark hallways, my thoughts spun like a whirlwind. What did this mean? What were they really after? We reached the back door, but as Victor fumbled with the lock, I heard footsteps behind us. Go! I shouted, pushing him forward. He stumbled ahead, but I turned just for a second. The man in the suit stood at the doorway, his shadow casting a long, dark line across the floor. His eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew there was no escape. As we burst into the cold night air, my heart slammed against my chest, the harsh truth settling in, my life, as I had known it, was over. But in that chaos, as we ran, one thought echoed louder than all the others: I had the power to change this. The path my parents chose for me, control, deception, manipulation, would not be the path I followed. Victor pulled me along, his voice urging me forward. We have to go. Now. But I couldn't help myself. What was all this for, Victor? My breath was shallow, panic creeping up my spine. What do they want from me? What are they hiding? He didn't answer immediately. We kept running, the sound of our footsteps the only thing filling the silence. Then, as we reached the edge of the woods, he stopped and turned to me, eyes locked on mine with an intensity one had never seen before. They want what you can give them, he said, his voice grim. Your parents are in deep, Maya. They've been laundering money, forging documents. But there's more, there's something else they're hiding from you, something far worse. And you're the key to unlocking it. I felt the ground beneath me shift. What do you mean? Victor shook his head, fear in his eyes. I can't explain it now. But trust me, you need to be careful. If you want to stay alive, if you want to bring them down, you have to play it smart. I stared at him, trying to process everything, but it was too much. Too much to take in. My family, the people I had trusted my whole life, had pulled me into something I never signed up for. But as the sound of approaching cars grew louder, a fierce resolve settled in my chest. No matter what it took, I was going to get to the bottom of this. I was going to tear down the empire they had built on lies. And I would be the one to expose the truth. The night swallowed us whole as we disappeared into the woods. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. As I ran, one final thought circled in my mind: it's not about the money or the power. It's about freedom, the freedom to choose my own path. And for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to be free.